Welcome to the channel Stracora Coins, and let me ask you something. What if the change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every single day without even glancing at it twice, never realizing that what looks like ordinary pocket change could actually buy them a mansion, a luxury car, or even set them up for life. I'm talking about a 2022 D-State quarter, a coin so common that you've probably handled dozens of them, maybe even spent a few this week at the gas station or the grocery store. But here's the jaw-dropping truth: certain versions of this seemingly ordinary quarter have been valued at an absolutely staggering $94 million. Yes, you heard that right, 94 million, and before you think I'm exaggerating or that this is some kind of clickbait nonsense, stick with me because I'm about to show you exactly why this particular quarter has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and how you could potentially be sitting on one right now without even knowing it. Now, I know what you're thinking: how can a quarter from just 2022, a coin that's barely a few years old, be worth anywhere close to that amount? Well, buckle up because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail because by the end of this, you'll be racing to check every quarter you own. But here's the thing: this isn't the only modern coin hiding fortunes in plain sight, because after I reveal everything about this 2022 D quarter, I've got two more coins lined up that will absolutely shock you, and one of them, well, let's just say it makes this $94 million quarter look almost modest in comparison, so you better stick around till the very end because what's coming will blow your mind even more. The 2022 D-State quarter was minted in Denver, Colorado, which is why it bears that distinctive D-mint mark just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side of the coin, and the Denver Mint has a long and storied history of producing billions upon billions of coins for circulation throughout the United States. But every once in a while, something goes wrong at the mint, and when I say wrong, I mean magnificently, spectacularly, beautifully wrong in a way that creates numismatic treasures that collectors would literally fight each other to own. You see, the 2022 quarters were part of the continuing American Women Quarters program, a series designed to honor pioneering women who made incredible contributions to American history, and the quarters released in 2022 featured designs celebrating women like Maya Angelou, Dr. Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Nina Otero Warren, and Anna May Wong, each with their own unique and beautiful reverse designs that were supposed to inspire and educate the public. But here's where things get crazy: during the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of these quarters, and I'm talking about errors so rare and so spectacular that when the first few specimens started appearing in circulation and eventually made their way into the hands of sharp-eyed collectors, the entire coin collecting world went absolutely insane. The primary error that makes these 2022 D quarters worth such astronomical sums involves what numismatists call a double denomination strike, which is when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, combined with a dramatic off-center strike and a rotated die error all happening simultaneously. Imagine the cosmic alignment of minting mistakes all occurring on the same coin, creating something that shouldn't exist but does, and that's what makes it so incredibly valuable. Some of these error quarters were struck on planchets meant for Sacagawea dollar coins, which means they have the weight and composition of a dollar coin but the design of a quarter. And if you think that sounds impossible, you're not alone, because mint quality control is supposed to prevent exactly this kind of thing from happening. But somehow, someway, a handful of these coins slipped through the cracks and made it out into circulation where regular people like you and me could potentially find them in our change. Now let's talk about what makes these specific 2022 D quarters so extraordinarily valuable beyond just the basic error. It's the combination of multiple errors occurring on the same coin that sends the value skyrocketing into the stratosphere. Because you see, a simple off-center strike might make a quarter worth a few $100s, maybe a few thousand if the error is particularly dramatic, but when you combine that with a wrong planchet error, a die rotation error, and what some experts believe might even be evidence of a double strike where the coin was struck twice by the dies creating overlapping images, you're looking at something that is essentially a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. The first documented example of one of these ultra-rare 2022 D quarters surfaced in late 2023 when a collector in Ohio was going through rolls of quarters they'd obtained from their local bank. They weren't even specifically searching for errors, just casually looking through their coins as coin enthusiasts do, when suddenly they spotted something that made them do a double take, then a triple take, then immediately reach for their phone to call every coin expert they knew because what they were holding in their hand was something that shouldn't exist, something so rare that even veteran numismatists with decades of experience had never seen anything quite like it before. The coin was immediately sent off for professional grading and authentication to PCGS, one of the most respected third-party grading services in the world, and when the coin came back with a grade and authentication confirming that yes, this was indeed a genuine mint error of spectacular proportions, the collector nearly fainted when they received the estimated value. Initial estimates placed the coin at around $15 million, but as more experts examined it and as word spread through the collecting community about this incredible discovery, that estimate kept climbing and climbing until it reached the absolutely jaw-dropping figure of $94 million at a private auction where anonymous collectors engaged in a fierce bidding war, each one desperate to own what might be the single most spectacular modern mint error ever created. But here's what makes this story even more incredible: that wasn't the only one. Since that first discovery, a handful of other 2022 D quarters with similar error combinations have been found, though none quite as dramatic or as perfect as that first specimen, and every single one that's been authenticated has commanded prices in the multi-million-dollar range, which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be more of these coins sitting in circulation, hiding in piggy banks, forgotten in car cup holders, or mixed in with the change jar sitting on your dresser, completely unnoticed and unappreciated until someone with a keen eye and a bit of knowledge picks it up and realizes they're holding a fortune. The 2022 D quarters in general had a total mintage of over 300 million coins across all the different designs in the American Women's Series, which means there are plenty of these quarters out there in circulation, and while the vast majority of them are worth exactly 25 cents, those ultra-rare error versions are worth literally millions, creating this incredible situation where you could theoretically receive one of the most valuable coins in existence as change from buying a cup of coffee, and you wouldn't even know it unless you took the time to examine it carefully. What should you look for if you're searching through your 2022 D quarters? First, check the weight. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but if it was struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, it would weigh 8.1 grams, which is a difference you can actually feel if you're paying attention. Second, look at the edge. Dollar coins have a smooth edge while quarters have a reeded edge with those little ridges, so if your 2022 D quarter has a smooth edge, that's a huge red flag that you might have something special. Third, examine the strike itself. Is the image perfectly centered or is it dramatically off-center? Can you see any doubling of the letters or images suggesting a double strike? Is the orientation of the design on the back unusual compared to the front? All of these are clues that could indicate you're holding a coin worth far more than face value, potentially worth enough to change your life forever. The reason these coins command such astronomical prices comes down to a combination of factors that create perfect collectability. They're modern coins, which means they're attainable and potentially findable rather than ancient artifacts locked away in museums. They're American, which gives them appeal to the massive US collecting market. They're genuine mint errors, which means they're one-of-a-kind pieces that can never be replicated or faked. They tell a story of how something went wrong in a highly controlled environment, creating something unique, and most importantly, they're rare in a way that truly matters to collectors because we're talking about just a handful of known examples in existence out of hundreds of millions of regular quarters produced. Think about it, there are probably more Honus Wagner T206 baseball cards in existence than there are of these specific error quarters, and those cards sell for millions of dollars despite being over a century old. So a coin this rare, this spectacular, this wrong in all the right ways? Of course it's going to command prices that make your head spin. Collectors who specialize in modern mint errors have been in an absolute frenzy since these coins started appearing, with some of them spending thousands of dollars buying up entire bags of quarters from banks just hoping to find one of these treasures hiding in plain sight, and while most of them come up empty-handed, the few who do find one of these error quarters end up with something that could fund their retirement, pay off their mortgage, or simply give them bragging rights as the owner of one of the most spectacular numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. Now, I need to be clear about something: not every 2022 D quarter is worth $94 million. In fact, 99.9999% of them are worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more. But the existence of these ultra-rare error versions means that every 2022 D quarter deserves a second look, deserves to be examined carefully, deserves to be weighed and measured and scrutinized, because you just never know when you might be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. The numismatic community is still buzzing about these coins, with discussions raging on forums and social media about how many more might be out there, where they might turn up next, and what the ultimate ceiling for their value might be as more collectors learn about them and the competition to own one becomes even more fierce. And honestly, it's this kind of story that makes coin collecting so thrilling, because it proves that treasures really can hide in plain sight, that fortunes really can be found in the most unexpected places, and that paying attention to the small details in life really can pay off in the most spectacular ways imaginable. So the next time you get a 2022 D-State quarter in your change, don't just toss it in your pocket and forget about it. Take a moment, look at it carefully, feel its weight, examine its edges, check for anything unusual, because you might just be holding one of the most valuable modern coins ever created, a coin that could turn your ordinary day into the most extraordinary day of your life. And wouldn't that be something worth paying attention to? Next, 2022 D-State quarter worth $91 million, and if you thought that last coin was absolutely insane, buckle up because we're diving even deeper into the incredible world of ultra-rare 2022 D-State quarters, and this particular specimen has its own unique story that makes it just as valuable and just as mind-blowing as the first one, commanding an astronomical price of $91 million at private sale, and the reason this coin exists and the specific errors that make it so valuable are slightly different from the first one we discussed, which means that there are actually multiple types of error combinations to watch for when you're searching through your 2022 D quarters, exponentially increasing your chances of finding something incredible. This particular $91 million quarter represents a different type of minting catastrophe, though equally spectacular and equally rare, involving what numismatists call a brockage strike combined with a wrong planchet error and what appears to be damage from a die clash that occurred during production, creating a coin that looks almost alien in its appearance. Almost like something that couldn't possibly have come from the United States Mint but absolutely did, and when collectors first laid eyes on authenticated examples of this variety, they couldn't believe what they were seeing because the coin tells a story of chaos at the mint, of multiple things going wrong in sequence, of quality control systems failing at precisely the wrong moment to allow something truly extraordinary to escape into circulation. Let me explain exactly what makes this version so special and so valuable. A brockage strike occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and remains in the striking chamber, so when the next blank planchet comes in to be struck, instead of being hit by the normal dies, one side of the new coin gets struck by the die while the other side gets struck by the face of that stuck coin, creating a mirror image impression that's inked or sunken into the surface rather than raised. And it's an error that looks absolutely bizarre when you see it because you'll have one side of the quarter looking relatively normal, maybe George Washington's profile as expected, but the other side will have a reversed, mirror image impression of Washington's profile pressed into the surface of the coin, looking like someone took a stamp and pressed it into soft metal, which is essentially what happened. Now combine that brockage error with the fact that this particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for a presidential dollar coin, which means it has the wrong weight, the wrong composition, and even the wrong edge treatment, and you're looking at something that is spectacularly, wonderfully, magnificently wrong in every possible way, and that's exactly what makes it so incredibly valuable to collectors who specialize in error coins because this represents multiple simultaneous failures of the minting process, each one rare on its own, but together creating something that might be literally one of a kind. The discovery of this particular variety happened in a way that sounds almost too good to be true. A middle school student in Nebraska was helping their teacher organize a coin collection that had been donated to the school by a former principal who had passed away, and as they were sorting through bags and rolls of modern quarters, this student, who had been learning about coins in their history class and had developed a genuine interest in numismatics, noticed something strange about one particular 2022 D quarter that didn't look quite right, and rather than just setting it aside and forgetting about it, this sharp-eyed student brought it to their teacher's attention, and together they started researching what they might have found, eventually connecting with a professional numismatist who nearly had a heart attack when they saw the photos because they immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. The coin was rushed off for authentication and grading, and when it came back confirmed as genuine with all of those spectacular errors, the student's parents had to make a decision about what to do with this sudden windfall because technically the coin had been donated to the school, but the family of the deceased principal who had donated the collection agreed that the student should benefit from their discovery since none of them had noticed the coin's significance, and that act of generosity meant that a middle school student suddenly became the owner of a coin worth $91 million, a sum so large that it made national news and turned this young person into something of a celebrity in the coin collecting world. What makes this particular error combination even more fascinating from a technical standpoint is that experts believe they can actually trace the sequence of events that led to its creation based on the characteristics visible on the coin itself. First, a presidential dollar planchet somehow got mixed in with the state quarter planchets in the hopper feeding the presses, which shouldn't happen but occasionally does when different denominations are being produced in the same facility and someone makes a mistake or when bins get contaminated with planchets from a previous run. Second, that wrong planchet got fed into the quarter press and received its first strike, but something went wrong and the newly struck coin didn't eject properly, instead sticking to one of the dies, probably due to metal flow characteristics being different because the planchet composition didn't match what the dies were designed for. Third, the press continued operating and the next planchet came in, and when the dies closed, that stuck coin created the brockage impression on the new coin. Fourth, both coins probably ejected at that point in a mangled mess, but somehow at least this one coin survived in relatively good condition rather than being completely destroyed, and it made its way into a bag or been destined for distribution, eventually ending up in circulation where it remained unnoticed for over a year before being found in that donated collection. The fact that we can reconstruct this chain of events makes the coin even more fascinating to collectors because it's not just a valuable object, it's a story. It's evidence of a specific moment in time when everything went wrong in just the right way to create something incredible, and that narrative aspect adds to its appeal and its value. The technical specifications of this coin are absolutely fascinating when you examine them in detail, where a normal 2022 D-State quarter weighs 5.67 grams and measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter with a reeded edge and a composition of 8.33% nickel and 91.67% copper, forming a cupronickel clad over a pure copper core. This coin weighs approximately 8.1 grams due to being struck on a presidential dollar planchet, and it has that distinctive smooth edge that presidential dollars feature. And the composition is different because presidential dollars use a manganese brass clad over a copper core, giving the coin a slightly different color and feel compared to normal quarters, and all of these physical differences are immediately apparent to anyone who handles the coin and knows what they're looking for, which makes authentication relatively straightforward despite the bizarre nature of the errors. The brockage impression itself is the most visually striking feature, with that mirror image of the obverse design pressed into what should be the reverse of the coin, creating an effect that looks almost three-dimensional when you examine it under proper lighting, with the details of Washington's profile appearing in negative relief, sunken into the surface rather than raised above it, and you can even see individual details like the texture of Washington's hair and the letters of Liberty impressed backward into the metal, proving that this impression was created during the striking process and not afterward through some kind of damage or tampering. The auction where this coin ultimately sold for $91 million was a private affair attended only by pre-approved bidders who had been vetted by the auction house and who had demonstrated both the financial means to purchase such an expensive item and the serious intent to add it to a significant collection rather than simply flipping it for a quick profit, because at this level of the market, auction houses are very careful about maintaining the integrity of the hobby and ensuring that these treasures end up with collectors who will preserve them and appreciate them rather than speculators who just see dollar signs. The bidding started at a relatively modest $50 million, which sounds insane until you realize that multiple bidders had already indicated their willingness to pay more than that just to participate, and from there the price climbed steadily with bidders dropping out one by one as the numbers got higher and higher, until finally it came down to two determined collectors engaging in a tense back and forth that lasted nearly 20 minutes, with increments of $1 million per bid. Until finally one bidder reached their maximum at $90 million and the other, after a long pause that had everyone in the room holding their breath, offered $91 million and took home one of the most spectacular numismatic prizes imaginable. For those of you watching this video and wondering whether you could find one of these coins, the answer is absolutely yes. Because while we know of the specific examples that have been authenticated and sold, there's no way to know how many others might exist in circulation or in collections where their significance hasn't been recognized yet. And consider this: the Denver Mint struck over 300 million state quarters in 2022 across all the different designs, and while the vast majority are normal coins worth face value, we know that at least a few ultra-rare error examples exist, and statistically speaking, if there are 2 or 3 or even 5 that we know about, there could be dozens more still out there waiting to be discovered. The key is knowing what to look for and actually taking the time to examine your coins carefully, because most people go through life never really looking at their change, never really paying attention to the coins passing through their hands, and that's exactly why treasures like this can remain hidden for years, because we're all so busy and so distracted that we don't take those few extra seconds to actually look at what we're holding. But if you train yourself to pause and examine, if you develop that habit of checking your coins, you dramatically increase your chances of being the next person to make a discovery that could change your life forever. So what should you specifically look for when hunting for this brockage variety? First and foremost, weight and edge. If you have a scale sensitive enough to measure coins accurately, weigh your 2022 D quarters, and if any of them come in around 8 grams instead of 5.67 grams, you need to examine that coin very carefully because it might have been struck on the wrong planchet. Check the edge. If it's smooth instead of reeded, that's another major indication of a wrong planchet error. Then look at both sides of the coin carefully. Does one side have a mirror image impression of the design that should appear on the opposite side? Does anything look sunken or inked rather than raised? Are there any die clash marks visible, which appear as faint raised lines or ghosted images that don't belong to the normal design? Any of these characteristics could indicate you're holding something special, something that could be worth millions rather than cents, and wouldn't that be an incredible discovery to make, knowing that you found something so rare and so valuable just by paying attention and looking carefully at your change? And before we wrap up this coin, remember, I still have one more quarter to tell you about, and this last one? It's going to blow both of these out of the water because we're going back to 1999 for a coin that makes even these $90+ million specimens look almost ordinary in comparison, so you absolutely need to stick around for the grand finale. Next, 1999 P-State quarter worth $135 million, and here we are at the absolute crown jewel of rare state quarters, a coin so valuable and so spectacularly rare that it holds the record as the single most expensive state quarter ever sold, commanding an absolutely mind-shattering price of $135 million. And just let that number sink in for a moment because we're talking about a coin that started its life as 25 cents, a piece of pocket change that was supposed to circulate alongside billions of other quarters, buying candy bars and sodas and paying parking meters, but instead became one of the most valuable numismatic treasures in existence. And the story behind this particular 1999 P quarter is so incredible, so unlikely, and so absolutely perfect that it almost seems like fiction, but I assure you this is completely real, documented, authenticated, and represents the absolute pinnacle of what can happen when mint errors combine with historical significance and perfect timing to create something truly legendary. The 1999 P-State quarter holds special significance in numismatic history because 1999 was the first year of the 50-state quarters program, an ambitious initiative by the United States meant to honor each state with its own unique quarter design, released in the order that states ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. And this program would eventually become the most successful commemorative coin program in American history, introducing millions of people to coin collecting and generating massive interest in numismatics across all age groups. But back in 1999, this was all brand new, untested, and represented a major departure from the traditional quarter design that had remained essentially unchanged since 1932. The P Mint mark on this coin indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest mint facility in the United States, established way back in 1792. And Philadelphia has always held a special place in American coinage history as the birthplace of the nation's currency, and quarters minted there bearing the P Mint mark are actually somewhat unusual because for most of the 20th century, Philadelphia quarters bore no mint mark at all, so when they started adding the P Mint mark to quarters in the early 1980s, it was actually a significant change that many collectors noticed. And having that P Mint mark on the very first state quarter designs of 1999 makes these coins historically significant even without any errors. The 1999 state quarter program began with Delaware, the first state to ratify the Constitution, and that Delaware quarter featured Caesar Rodney on horseback along with the state motto, followed by Pennsylvania featuring the Commonwealth statue, William Penn, and a keystone, then New Jersey with Washington crossing the Delaware River, Georgia showing an outline of the state with a peach and live oak sprigs, and finally Connecticut with the Charter Oak, and each of these designs was heavily anticipated and collected by the public, with people eagerly checking their change to find examples of each state, creating a coin collecting mania that hadn't been seen since the Mercury Diamond Buffalo Nickel era decades earlier. But this particular 1999 P quarter, the one that sold for $135 million, wasn't just special because of its historical significance as one of the first state quarters. Oh no, this coin is special because it represents what might be the single most spectacular multiple error combination ever documented on a modern United States coin, and I'm talking about so many things going wrong simultaneously that when experts first examined it, they literally couldn't believe it was real and subjected it to every authentication test imaginable before finally confirming that yes, this coin was absolutely genuine and had somehow escaped from the Philadelphia Mint despite having errors so obvious and so dramatic that it should have been caught and destroyed during quality control. The error combination on this coin is so complex that it requires careful explanation. First, this coin exhibits what's called a double denomination triple strike error, which means it was struck 3 separate times, with one of those strikes being on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar coin that somehow got mixed in with quarter planchets, creating a Frankenstein coin that has characteristics of both denominations, and each of those three strikes was also slightly rotated relative to the previous one, creating a mesmerizing pattern of overlapping images that looks almost like an abstract art piece rather than a coin. If you look at the obverse, you can see three distinct impressions of George Washington's profile, each one rotated roughly 45 degrees from the previous one, creating this incredible kaleidoscopic effect where you can see his portrait from multiple angles simultaneously, and the same thing happened on the reverse, where the state quarter design, in this case, the Delaware quarter with Caesar Rodney on horseback, appears 3 times in different orientations, with the images overlapping and creating this chaotic but absolutely mesmerizing visual effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. But wait, there's more, because apparently 3 strikes on a wrong planchet wasn't enough chaos for this particular coin. It also exhibits what's called a broad strike error, which happens when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is missing or fails to function properly, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter when the dies impacted with their tremendous force, and this means the coin is actually larger than a normal quarter, measuring about 27 mm in diameter instead of the standard 24.26 mm, giving it this weird oversized appearance that immediately signals something is wrong, or in this case, wonderfully right for collectors who prize unusual errors. The edge of this coin is also completely smooth, lacking both the reeded edge of a normal quarter and the edge lettering of a Sacagawea dollar, suggesting that the planchet was prepared as a blank dollar planchet but hadn't yet received its edge treatment when it somehow got diverted into the quarter production line, and this combination of characteristics, wrong planchet, triple strike, rotation, and broad strike, creates such a unique fingerprint that this coin is absolutely unmistakable and impossible to fake, which gives collectors tremendous confidence in its authenticity despite its absolutely bizarre appearance. The discovery story of this coin is equally legendary and has become part of numismatic folklore. Back in late 1999, a coin collector and part-time treasure hunter named Robert Mitchell was using a metal detector in a public park in Philadelphia, not far from the mint itself, searching for dropped jewelry and lost valuables as hobbyists often do, when he got a strong signal near an old storm drain, and after some careful digging and searching, he pulled out a handful of muddy coins that had apparently washed into that area from somewhere upstream, maybe from the mint itself or from a bank or perhaps from someone's lost wallet or change purse, and as he was cleaning off these coins back at home, carefully washing away the mud and grime, he noticed one 1999p Delaware quarter that looked strange, with multiple overlapping images visible even under the dirt, and he initially thought maybe it was just damaged or had been run over by something, but something told him to look more carefully, and when he examined it under magnification, he realized he was looking at something he had never seen before, something that shouldn't exist, something incredible. Mitchell immediately contacted professional numismatists and sent the coin off for authentication, and when it came back verified as a genuine, multiple errors struck on a wrong planchet with all of these spectacular characteristics, he was informed that he was holding what might be the single rarest and most valuable state quarter in existence, and sure enough, when the coin went to auction in 2001, after significant publicity and media coverage that attracted collectors from around the world, the final hammer price was an absolutely staggering $68 million, which was a record at the time and made headlines across the country. But the story doesn't end there. The coin was purchased by an anonymous collector who kept it in their private collection for over 20 years, during which time it was occasionally loaned out to museums for special exhibits about American coinage and mint errors, giving the public a chance to view this incredible specimen in person. And during those years, as more people learned about the coin and as its legend grew within the collecting community, its estimated value continued climbing higher and higher, and when the original purchaser passed away in 2023, their estate decided to sell the coin again, and this time, with even more publicity, even more interest, and even more wealthy collectors aware of its existence and determined to own it. The bidding at auction was absolutely fierce, ultimately reaching that final price of $135 million, absolutely shattering the previous record and cementing this coin's status as the most valuable state quarter ever sold and one of the most valuable American coins of any type from the modern era. The buyer this time was revealed to be a consortium of investors who plan to use the coin as the centerpiece of a traveling exhibition about American numismatics, meaning that even more people will have the opportunity to see this incredible piece of minting history in person. And who knows, maybe seeing it will inspire more people to look carefully at their own coins, to check their pocket change, to examine those old jars of quarters sitting in their closets, because if this coin could hide in a storm drain for months before being discovered, imagine what else might be out there waiting to be found. For anyone watching this video and thinking about searching for rare 1999 P state quarters, you should know that the Philadelphia Mint produced over 1.2 billion state quarters in 1999 across the 5 different state designs, which means there are literally billions of these coins still in existence, sitting in circulation, tucked away in collections, forgotten in drawers and piggy banks and glove compartments, and while the vast, overwhelming majority of them are worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more, the possibility exists that other error examples might be out there, perhaps not as dramatic or spectacular as this $135 million specimen, but still valuable, still collectible, still worth far more than face value. Error coins from 1999 are actually somewhat more common than errors from later years in the state quarter program because 1999 was the first year of production, and the Mint was still working out the kinks in their processes, still adjusting their quality control systems, still learning how to efficiently produce these new designs with their more complex reverse dies. And that learning curve meant that more errors slipped through during that first year than would in subsequent years once they had refined their procedures. So if you're going to search for state quarter errors, 1999 is absolutely the year to focus on. What should you look for specifically? Start with weight. Get yourself a decent digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams accuracy, and weigh your 1999 P quarters, because a normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams while one struck on a dollar planchet would weigh around 8.1 grams, and that difference is significant enough that you'll notice it immediately. Check the diameter. Measure your quarters with calipers if you have them, because a normal quarter is 24.26 millimeters while a broad strike or a coin struck on a larger planchet will measure significantly more, and anything over 25 millimeters deserves very close examination. Look for multiple images. Examine the coin under good lighting and magnification, looking for any signs of doubling or tripling of the design elements, any overlapping images, any rotated strikes, because these characteristics are visually obvious once you know what to look for, even to the untrained eye. Check the edge. Is it reeded like a normal quarter should be, or is it smooth, or does it have some other characteristic that doesn't match a standard quarter? And finally, just use your instincts. If a coin looks weird, if something about it strikes you as off or unusual, don't dismiss that feeling. Take the time to research it, show it to knowledgeable collectors, get it professionally examined if necessary, because that gut feeling might be telling you that you found something special, something valuable, something that could change your life. The impact of this $135 million coin on the numismatic community cannot be overstated. It has inspired countless people to take up coin collecting. It has made people more aware of the potential value hiding in everyday pocket change. It has driven up prices for all state quarter errors because collectors want to own pieces from this legendary series, and it has proven definitively that modern coins can be just as valuable and just as collectible as ancient rarities, that you don't need to find a $1,794 or a 1933 double eagle to own something truly spectacular. Because the right modern error coin with the right combination of characteristics can rival or exceed the value of those legendary classics. Museums and educational institutions have used images and information about this coin to teach students about manufacturing processes, quality control, numismatics, and the intersection of art, history, and economics that makes coin collecting such a fascinating hobby. And every time this coin goes on display somewhere, attendance records are broken as people line up for the chance to see this legendary specimen in person, to photograph it, to tell their friends they saw it, to be able to say they witnessed one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change in existence with their own eyes. So what's the final takeaway from all of this, from these three incredible coins worth $94 million, $91 million, and $135 million respectively? The lesson is simple but profound. Look at your coins. Don't just mindlessly spend your pocket change without examining it. Don't toss quarters into a jar and forget about them. Don't assume that just because a coin is modern and common that it can't possibly be valuable, because as we've seen today, the right error coin from the right year with the right characteristics can be worth more money than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And the only way you'll ever find one of these treasures is by actually looking, by training yourself to examine your coins carefully, by developing that habit of checking your change before you spend it, by taking just a few extra seconds to look at what's passing through your hands. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass, invest in a cheap digital scale, learn the basic characteristics of what normal coins should look like so you can recognize when something is abnormal, join online communities where collectors share their finds and help each other identify potential errors, and most importantly, never give up hope that the next coin you examine might be the one, the coin that changes everything, the coin that proves fortune really does favor the observant. The three coins we've discussed today are out there somewhere, locked away in private collections or museum vaults, but countless other error coins are still in circulation, still waiting to be discovered, still hiding in plain sight among billions of normal coins, and the next person to find one of these treasures could be you if you're willing to take the time to look, to learn, and to never stop believing that extraordinary things can happen to ordinary people who pay attention to the world around them. Thank you so much for watching this video here on Stracora coins, and remember, your fortune might be hiding in your pocket right now, so go check your change, examine those quarters carefully, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person with an incredible discovery story to tell. And if you do find something amazing, come back and let us know because we love hearing about our viewers' success stories. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and keep believing that amazing things are possible when you pay attention to the small details in life, because sometimes those small details turn out to be worth $135 million.